You know the doctrine of the remnant? You're the remnant. We're coming, of course, very close to the end of the semester, and people are sick, people are skipping class because there's exams tomorrow, a test tomorrow. So it's crunch time. So, but I thank you for being here. You all know the rules by now. At about 10:02, you get your bit of a break. And just some reminders. I'll get a few more trickling in. Late, but still here. For those of you who haven't got your documentation in on your service, make sure you get that in. We're running out of probation is closing on that. So just to remind you to get that in. It's an important part of your grade for this class. Yeah, that is served as what the service is. Yes?
Sorry, can you just remind us how many hours we need for that?
About 15 hours. 4, yeah. Okay, I'll give you a double star. I know it's we're coming to the end of the cycle of topics that we covered this semester. But one very important subject is today's subject, conflict. I'm one of those people who, there's this Peanuts cartoon with Linus speaking, saying that there's sort of no problem that is so big or large that it cannot be run away from. So I put it that's my default mode. I don't like conflict. However, I get pulled into it every now and then, so I have to listen carefully again tonight to be reminded of some very important things. Conflict is unavoidable, and as the title says, it's not all bad. So I hope to learn myself the value of... where are you going? You know our speaker. If you don't know our speaker, you need to know our speaker. One of the most valuable people on campus in terms of what she does, in terms of helping students be successful. She also teaches a class for students on conflict management in our religious studies program, for which I'm very grateful that she does that. So please give her your full attention today. Important stuff there. So thank you for joining us.
No, I'm happy to be back. I noticed when I went up to check in your office about the exact date for this audit, I noticed on your course outline as this course listed as something about negotiating conflict. And this, I was telling, I think it's Chelsea, this really is more about navigating conflict. Oh, it's someone who works up in the office. Negotiating when it comes to conflict resolution is a specific technique. So what we're looking at today really is we're stepping back to the beginning of managing conflict. And what we're going to focus on today, one of the big pieces, is helping you understand what your individual style is. Because when you are in conflict with someone, understanding how you approach it, and being able to recognize how someone else, so the person you are in conflict with, what their way of navigating conflict is, can really give you some important information on how to move forward. So as you will see when you go through this, sometimes, depending on your go-to mode of managing conflict, two people who have the same style, and for some of them it means nothing will get accomplished successfully. So what we're going to start off with is I'm going to hand you each a little piece of paper. It's got 15 questions on it. So just take about 3 or 5 minutes to answer the front page. Don't bring it up the back right now. We'll get to that a bit later. But, oh, here, I'll take that one back. I think that's the one I was talking about. Did you get this? So here, you can pass these up behind you. We'll get them out. So this is an assessment that's based on probably one of the most famous authors when it comes to understanding how people navigate conflict. It's called the Thomas Hillman Conflict Modes. So I'll give you a couple minutes just to go through that.
Everyone have one?
And again, you don't have to worry about doing the back part right now. Well, I'll give you a couple minutes to do that in a couple minutes. All right, it looks like a lot of you are finished writing. So is there anybody in here who likes conflict? Like, you thrive on when you get into headbutting with a friend or a colleague or a classmate or a sibling?
This guy right here.
This guy? So what is it about conflict that you, does anyone in here, are you headed to be a lawyer? A business person? An HR manager? A teacher? These are all fields, anything in business, where you are likely to be faced with conflicts. In personal relationships, you're going to have to manage and navigate conflicts. For a lot of us, when we think of conflict, it brings up negative connotations and ideas. And as John said, run away. Because conflict can be really uncomfortable, but it also is an opportunity for learning, understanding, and growth. Some of us aren't keen on changing or growing, or even understanding other people. But in the conflict resolution course, one of the things that we spend a lot of time talking about is this idea of developing a sense of curiosity, so that you can understand where the other person is coming from. Here's one thing to remember about conflict, is that you can reach the same goal. They might be interested in the same outcome, but have different ideas of how they should be achieved, how you should get there. And that's where conflict, ugly conflict, might arise. It is a natural part. If you think back on any relationship that you've had, so whether it's in your family, with your siblings, with your parents, with your aunts, with friends, with significant others, it can be big, it can be small. It can be easy to work through, and even what you're going to order for dinner, what TV program you're going to watch, who's going to pay for what. Those are all conflicts that if navigated well, you might not even think about as a conflict because it didn't create a sense of angst within you or make your blood boil, your emotions come up. But conflict becomes unhealthy when it is mismanaged, when it's ignored, when it's shoved under the table, because then there's no result that comes out of it. Which, if you're someone who likes to avoid conflict, that might work in the short term, but it may have a negative consequence in the long term. And typically what will happen is ill feelings, frustrations start to fester. And that can lead to a blow up of some kind. So ideally, when you are in conflict with someone, it's something that you can address and deal with early on, before it becomes a really big problem. So keep the molehill a molehill, and don't let it turn into a mountain. You know that expression, making a mountain out of a molehill? All right, so this little assessment you just did, it is based on a much bigger, longer assessment developed by Thomas and Kilman. They were two guys. And it really was to try and identify different ways that people tend to approach managing conflict. And through all their research, they came up with 5 different approaches. Now you'll see these 5 different approaches, and sometimes they have slightly different names and what have you. But they're all very similar in the way they end up being described. So you have, if you see here on the side, it's looking at levels of assertiveness and levels of cooperation, and where these 5 fall among these 2 dimensions right here. So when we're talking about assertiveness, it really is about satisfying your needs, your own personal needs, as you navigate the conflict. So this might be someone who is, well, I really don't care if nobody else is happy as long as I get what I need, as long as I get what I want. And for cooperativeness, it is about putting what the others who are involved in the conflict, trying to ensure that their needs get satisfied to some degree. And so, whichever styles you end up defaulting to, it's based on these 2 behaviors. Now, for a lot of us, depending on the conflict itself, but also depending on who we are in conflict with, we'll move between these. So this isn't a one and done. You probably have a couple that you defer to and use most often. But when push comes to shove, you might be able to get into one of these other areas that you don't normally go to. So I'll give you an example for myself. I'm not typically on a competing, I'm not a competing person. So competing is like I win, you lose. So it's all about me. And I don't care if you're unhappy, I don't care if you don't get what you want, I got what I want. That's not my go-to at all. But as soon as I had kids, that part of me started to come out in situations where I needed to advocate for my children. And yeah, that whole mama bear thing, it's real. So again, depending on the situation, who you're working with, how invested you are, you might end up defaulting to one that isn't your most comfortable one to be in. But what we're going to do is we're going to look at these. We're going to look at these 5 different styles. So competing, collaborating, compromising, avoiding, and accommodating. And now the way I'm going to present them to you is the way that I learned them, and I loved it because it made it really easy to remember which was which, and which traits went with which style. So, the first one we're going to look at is competing. And competing is often equated to a shark. And this is because I don't know many animals in the ocean who can, win a fight with a shark. So, a dolphin? Did someone say a dolphin? That'd be great if they could. I love that. So might makes right. That is their typical motto. So they're assertive and uncooperative. And it really is about, I'm in the position of power. I am in the position to get what I want, and I'm going to get what I want. This can work in a positive way when you're standing up for your rights, or you are really defending a position that it's that hill you are willing to die on, because it's that important to you. And a copy of these slides are posted on the ECL side. So there are benefits to the competing style. So when people are in the position to make decisions that will be unpopular, that might have a negative impact on others, or when time is of the essence and you can't really sit back and have a debate about all the different options and what outcomes those might be. So this is when it works well. But again, the people who the decision is being imposed upon, it leaves them feeling very powerless and out of control. Hence, you don't want to use that very often if you want to keep a relationship healthy and going both ways. So, the benefits we did, the cost are strained relationships, and then of course, you demotivate the people that you are dictating. And it makes it, in a workplace setting, it would make it hard for them to want to show up to work and want to do a job that they can be proud of, because if you don't care about me, I don't care about you. In an academic setting, it could leave students feeling like their voice isn't heard, like it doesn't matter what they do, their professor may not be willing to have a conversation with them if their paper or their test wasn't as good as they thought it should be. So that is the competing one, the shark. The second one that was at the top, light and assertiveness and cooperativeness, is collaborating. So this idea of collaboration. And this one, of course, is represented by an owl, because owls are wise. 2 heads are better than 1. So that's their motto. If we come together and pool our ideas, pool our resources, have a conversation, what kind of options can we come up with to resolve this issue? So it works to find a solution that is satisfactory to all of those involved. And if not 100%, it isn't that one person gets everything, the other person gets nothing. They both walk away feeling good about the decisions that were made, and feeling like their ideas were heard and respected. The other positive thing about this approach is that it creates an environment where conversation can happen and you can learn from each other. So what this means is that you're suspending what you want and why you think your idea is the best, and you're truly listening to what the other person has to say, why their ideas, in their opinion, make sense, and will likely work to resolve the issue. So again, this is where that sense of curiosity comes into play, and open-mindedness to consider what it is they're expressing to you. A collaborative approach often leads to really creative solutions to problems when it comes to problem solving. So high-quality decisions, learning and communication, and it strengthens relationships because there's equality based in the conversations. Even if someone within the conversation is the boss or holds more power, they step out of that for the sake of those conversations. But as great as the benefits are, there are costs. And time and energy are two of those that, again, depending on the situation, may or may not be available. Because typically, instead of someone just coming in and saying, okay, this is what we're going to do, go do it, it's let's sit down and have a conversation. And there's typically a lot of back and forth, revising, coming up with new ideas. So it takes time and energy, and again, it requires you to open your mind, to be receptive to something that might be out of the box for you, or uncomfortable for you to try out. The third option, that's the one right in the middle, is the cost. And it demonstrates the compromising piece. So what can we do where I get something of what I want and you get something of what you want? So their motto is split the difference. You get some, I get some, 50-50. So again, it can be very useful in some situations, especially if you've tried to resolve and you've come to realize we are never going to agree. So what can we do so that we can at least each walk away with something? And this is where negotiators and mediators can actually play a really good role. Typically, it's a mutually acceptable solution, even if it's not ideal for either side. So you both get a little bit of something. Best suited for issues that are of intermediate importance. So again, this isn't the hill that you're wanting to die on. So if you don't get exactly what you want, I can make it work. And when you get out into a work environment, this quite often ends up being the go-to. So benefits, and then it maintains relationships. And tries to provide a sense of fairness for both sides when it comes to the outcome. The costs are that you may not reach the best decision because you didn't have that longer, deeper conversation to really hear each other out. But again, if it's an issue that isn't of the utmost importance, maybe that's okay. And then only partly, you're only getting part of what you want, not everything that you want. So right now in Alberta, I guess actually in Canada, there are a number of work organizations that are going on strike. So the post office, the postal workers gave their strike notice. Nurses bit of space so that they can figure out what they want to do. Because they may not even know what they want to do. So, someone might use avoiding before they go to their favorite, which maybe is compromise or collaborating. But they might need this space just to have a moment to figure out, what do I even want to have? So for example, say someone was in a relationship for a while and their significant other showed up one day and said, you know what, I think I'm done. I think I want to just, let's break up. And this person is like, I thought everything was going great. What? I don't understand. I don't want to talk about this right now. I can't deal with it. That's not to say they won't ever deal with it, but giving them that space to say, okay, what just happened? What do I even want? How am I going to make sense of this? So avoiding in the short term, it doesn't necessarily have to be a bad thing. So when you look at these 5 modes, don't think good, bad, better, best, never do, always do. Because, again, it's not one size fits all. So the benefits of avoiding it reduces stress, at least in the short term. Steering clear of danger. So again, if you are in conflict with someone who is highly charged, they're emotional, they're violent, they're really angry, step back. In that situation, avoiding for the moment, it's not a bad technique to use. It gives you the opportunity to set up more favorable conditions in which to have a conversation. And then some of the costs, if somebody avoids and never addresses the issue at hand, that then will have a negative consequence. So it will have a negative impact on the relationship. It can lead to resentment on both sides and delays, and you don't get to a decision or you reach a very poor decision for an outcome. And then the last one is accommodating, the teddy bear. So we have the shark, the owl, the fox, the turtle, and now the teddy bear. I know, because this one now you can hold in color while you're trying to figure out what to do. If I had to put a real bear up there, it'd probably be either a panda bear or a koala bear. Because they at least won't eat me. No, a grizzly bear might not. So, with accommodating, their motto is kill your enemies with kindness. So again, when you are accommodating somebody, you're giving up what you want to make sure they get what they want. And again, not always a bad thing. A lot of things depend on that. But yielding to the other person's point of view. Oh, did I miss one? No. So the benefit of being someone who is accommodating is that it restores harmony. Now, I have a sister who cannot stand it if somebody in the room doesn't like her. Which is an insane position to hold because there's always going to be someone who doesn't like you. And you can't do anything about that. Not every single time. So you just have to be okay with the fact that some people will like you, some people won't. But when you are the accommodator in a group, it really is about keeping harmony and ensuring the relationship is, I don't want to say healthy, but I will say happy. Because everybody seems to be on the same page. It also ends the conflict quickly. So there may not be a lot of conversation, you need for the other person. And that, again, might work in the short term, but at some point, you as a person who always gives in, who always steps back, will get to a point, well, when will what I want matter? So it will start to have an impact on you. There will be a loss of respect, and this will be for both ways. The people you always give into will eventually not even ask you what you want because you always give in to what they want. So it's, oh yeah, well, Elise will just do whatever. It doesn't matter what she wants. You might then also lose respect for them because they don't value your opinion, they don't value your input. And then it can also lead to a loss of motivation because, well, why try? Now I'm gonna, but just before our break, I know it's time for a break. I have like a 3-minute, okay, I should have set this up before I came in. Where is it? Okay, sorry. Why is the sound not working? Okay. Why don't we just go ahead and take your break?
5 minutes.
And then when we get back, we'll set this. I'll try to have this.
How many have you made so far? Okay. Good. I've got the hole punches don't ruin it.
I just have to change how
That would probably get you. My hole punches. But they're ripping it from me makes sense. You can't do it. Sorry about that.
Let me know what ideas for design.
You should do like lots of spirals. Yeah. And then like a bunch of small ones. Yeah. go, yeah. It's paper airplanes on the paper.
It's too complicated.
Fair enough, fair enough.
Sorry, that was not.
That was really
One more. No, that was it.
These are for the class.
What?
These are for this class. No, I print out all my homework so I can just do it here without a computer.
Hey, don't say that word.
But all the slides and stuff are for the
She's just really in here for the video.
And the class is an hour and 20 minutes, so it would be safe not to do that. So, might as well be productive somehow.
Okay, so it looks like most of you are back. So just a conversation I was having with students. One of the reasons it's really important to understand how you manage conflict is because when you come up against someone else, if you are someone who's trying to collaborate and the person you're working with is in a competing mode, before you continue to butt heads and not get anywhere, recognizing your different approaches and maybe even having a conversation about, this is how I see you approaching our conflict. This is what my idea is. How can we figure out working together even before we figure out what we're going to do? Or if you come into a conversation or to a conflict and you're in very much a competing mode, and you recognize your attitude and your approach, the person you are in discussion or conflict with, they've now, they're that turtle and they've pulled everything in and they're just kind of shut down. Your ability to recognize that and change gears and say, okay, wait. I realize I came on really strong. Let's start over. So why don't you tell me what it is, what's the outcome you would like to see? Or how would you see this ending positively? And pull back and change your approach. Again, it takes a little bit of self-awareness and understanding your emotion and recognizing emotions in others to be able to do that. But that's one way that can really, having this knowledge and this recognition of different ways to handle conflict, you can start using tonight and go home and argue with me. All right, just a brief little, where am I? Okay. Pages of parents. This first part has no sound, so don't.
Oh, I'm sorry. Excuse me. We have this cart.
Yeah, well, I had a 24-inch waist. You lose things. Get out of my way.
Oh, I'm sorry. Maybe I wasn't being clear. This was our cart.
Hey, there aren't any clothes in it.
Hey, quit making up rules.
Let go.
Come on, let's go. All right, listen, Nancy. If you want this cart, you're going to have to take me with it.
What? Please don't keep Monica and Rachel. This wasn't their fault, it was mine.
You want me to get you guys out instead?
No, you can't do that. Maybe the chick and the duck live.
You have pets?
No.